Well, hello everyone. It is Wednesday, July the 3rd, noon Central Time. This is in the U.S., of course, 4th of July week, leading to 4th of July weekend. And big day is tomorrow, the 4th of July, and there'll be all kinds of activities all around the country and parades and lots of fireworks, those kind of things. Where I am in North Alabama, we're getting ready to be very, very hot again. Today was a beautiful day for my walk, overcast and in the upper 70s into the low 80s when I finished. But it was overcast and it wasn't real humid, but it's supposed to be the next 4 or 5 days, be very upper 90s with the humidity making it feel like 107, 108. That's really hot and unpleasant for us. So I'll walk real early and I'll drink a lot of water. But and some places are getting too much water and too much rain and things like that. So I hope wherever you are that things are, your weather is not too awful and that you find ways to enjoy things. I was going to show you just a little bit of a project that I'm working on as we give it another couple of minutes for people to join us, because this is a holiday week and a lot of people in the U.S. are on vacation this week. I don't really expect a whole lot of folks here. I did see a hello from Galena, Ohio. So hello to you, Galena, Ohio. It might just be you and me today. But I've been working on a great quilt that I've been excited about, and it's called Oh My Stars. It's an American Jane pattern, and that's a Sandy Klopp. She's the designer and the owner of American Jane Patterns. I just think it's great. And on the wall over there are just a few of the blocks. I had it up on the wall. I'm almost done all the big star blocks. I think I have 2 more to go out of the 13, and then I have a bunch of those little bitties, the small stars that are in the sashing. There's 132 of those, and I have 20 of them done. So I've got a ways to go in those. But I had it on the wall, and then for today, I had to take it off the wall to be able to put pick a petal back up. So I just left 3 of them up there just because they're just so fun, and I'm just really enjoying it. The first one, like usually happens, there's that learning curve, and I didn't do all that great with the first one, but anytime I'm working with a pattern, particularly when I know it's strongly likely to be a class, and this one is very likely to be a 5-day seminar class, that I take lots of notes and I write handouts with suggestions, things like pressing and just all kinds of tips and things like this. And of course, I'm working on a supply list for what tools you should have and what notions are handy to have and things that aren't ever going to be listed on a pattern itself. So I'm working on a lot of that as I get going on this. But the second star came out much better than the first one, and the third and the fourth. And now the one I just finished this morning, it didn't turn out so great for some reason, and it should have been really terrific. And I like it, so I think I'm going to have to take it apart and give it another. The middle's a problem. If it's a star, which is supposed to be flat, and it looks like a hat, that's not good. So my middle sort of looks like a hat. So all right, we'll work on it again and do something else and get back in there. So. Anyway, I'm loving how it's going. Once I got started with it, I'm really excited to work on it. Of course, I've got all the fabrics pulled and I'm working on those. So that was really great. The other day, I taught a hand piecing class a few days ago, and the little sample that's over there on the chair. Come on, there you go. That's my little sample of the little block that I taught. It's a 3-hour hand piecing class. And the 3 people who were in it are pretty adept at machine piecing, and they really struggled with the hand piecing and getting it the way they wanted it and making sure the size was right. And the stitches were, for most of them, were too long, and they just, trying to learn the whole thing. And it's like any other skill. There are tips and tricks and things to learn, and you get better. Practice, practice, practice. You get better as you go. So we had a good time with that little 3-hour class, and that is a class that I'm teaching in Houston this fall. It's the only class that I have that still has openings in it. My other 2 machine piecing classes filled the first day, which was very exciting for me, and I'm thrilled that those I'm going to have 25 great students in each of those classes come this fall when I go to Houston. So So let's talk about Petal and embroidery. Some of you have really been looking forward to this part, and some maybe not so much. I did embroidery as a kid years ago. And like many of you, I'm sure, I describe myself as a maker. When I was a little kid, I learned to crochet and to knit and embroidery. And I went to the 5 and dime store with my 50 cents allowance or whatever it was. And I could buy little kits for embroidery, pre-stamped fabrics that had lazy daisies and flowers and things like that on it, little shapes. And then it came with floss and a needle and a minor little tiny book that would show you how to do things. This was pre-internet, remember? Everything was written down in paper. That's how you learned things. You read things. Or you went and you found someone who knew what you wanted to learn how to do, and they taught you. So, but I did a lot of that stuff and tea towels and, all that kind of stuff, little embroidery things. But it's been a long time since I've been in elementary school doing embroidery. But I have several books and lots of information that and today it's so easy to just Google. So one of the things that I saw actually this morning on comments for the Petal pattern for this month, for month 7, is several people were unhappy or they wished that there was more instruction from Jen Kingwell. We have all the instruction from Jen for this blog pattern that we're going to get. She talked about embroidery in her show, and that show is still available for everybody to watch. It's a free show all year. So even if you're not a Star member, you can still watch that show. And she has a section on embroidery where she shows it in detail and she talks about it. So that's out there. And then the only other thing that we have from her for embroidery is this month's pattern. And then in a couple of months, we get the other embroidery motifs for the remaining 2 borders. This month, we have embroidery motifs for 2 of the 4 log cabin borders. And then in a couple of months, we get the rest. So, but as several people commented on the comments there, that their go-to is either YouTube or Google when you want to learn how to do something. And so that's what I did as well. I'm going to switch to the document camera first and show you my tools. Then we're going to go, I'll share my screen and I'll go to a few of those sites that I recommend that you can look for and can see. So let me switch here to the document camera. And yeah, here we go. Okay. So as I mentioned, the patterns that we have for this month are these pages with the motifs. There's this one. I'm anxious to do this one. This is this Queen Anne's lace, and that goes on a different border than I'm working on right now. But I'm just working on the first border, which for me is the top border. So that's one. So the first person I called a couple of weeks ago when I was preparing for all of this was my good friend, Alex Anderson. And I said, Alex, you know how to do all this stuff. And I have questions because I don't know how to do all this stuff. So help me with answer some of my questions. So she did. And the first thing she told me is, the first thing she recommended is that you do embroidery, because these are log cabin borders that are just regular cotton weight fabric, that you use a hoop, an embroidery hoop. So I said, oh, no problem, I have those. There's no need to put any kind of stabilizer on the back like we would do if we were doing machine embroidery, because you're doing this by hand, so it's not really a problem. But a hoop. So I had this hoop in my house, and I tried to put it on, and I used it actually. I put it on this 6-inch wide or 8-inch wide log cabin border, and it just really didn't fit it all that well. So my guild had a little sale a couple of weeks ago, a yard sale thing, and one of my good buddies there had this little tiny embroidery small hoop. It's about a 5-inch hoop. I went, oh, that'll be perfect for Petal. So I got that from her. So, but Alex said to use a hoop, and I want to try hard not to unthread these needles that I've already threaded, because you don't want to watch me do that on camera if I don't have to. So, but I had some other hoops as well. A lot of you might have these wooden embroidery hoops that have the little screw type on there, and Alex says these are her preferred kind. She doesn't like the metal ones with this clamp. The metal ones with the clamp, I put the clamp on the back side to try to cut down on the number of times you're going to catch the end of the thread in this hook. But she likes the wood one. Now this is the wood one I have, but it's too large for the 8-inch border, as I said. I even dug around and I found in my old supplies, this thing might be 75 or 100 years old, came out of an old file of stuff in my parents' house, which was a very old house to begin with. And it's a metal embroidery hoop, and you can see that it's oval. And this might work well for the log cabin as well. I just hadn't tried it at all. In fact, it's probably, oh, I see. It's not rusty. It's got cork on the inside. So you may actually have embroidery hoops already that you don't know that you have. So let me get those out of the way. So then another thing that is we want to talk about is needles. So I asked Alex about needles, and she likes sashiko needles. And the ones that she likes are needles that are we sell in the Quilt Show store. And I have a bunch of sashiko needles. So this is a little packet of Clover sashiko needles. Some of the glare is on there. But that one, it says 4 types. So there's 4 different sizes on there. Here's another packet of Clover sashiko needles, and I've used a couple of these. They have gold eyes on them. Then I had these packets that I got. This is a big stitch quilting pack from Pepper Corey. Nice big needles. There were 14 needles in this pack, and I've been using a few of those. And then here's another one, a sashiko needle sampler. And these came out several years ago now. I know I got these at Market directly from Pepper from the Colonial Needle Company. So, but those are, you want a big eye. Obviously, these are thicker threads than we piece with, and so you need a large eye so you can get the embroidery floss through. And I said to Alex, I did also find that I have these self-threading needles, and that made it easier for me to thread. And she said, I don't like those needles. She's just not a fan of the hook at the top for the needle threader, so to pop it in there. But you may find that they work well for you, so you just have to figure it out. Then I got some chenille needles. These are a size 26, and I think that's what Jen recommended. She talked about size 26 needles, and a chenille needle has a sharp point. A tapestry needle, which is similar to this, has a rounded point, and that isn't going to work going through regular fabric. It's used for going through things like cross-stitch cloth and needlepoint canvas and things like that. And then here's an old package, a very old package of Dritz needles, embroidery, and their sizes 1 through 5. So you may have some of those. So you want to try those. Then I said to Alex, do you 1 thread or 2 threads with the Wonderfill? Because we didn't have any information on this great thread that came in the kit. This is Wonderfill. It's wonderful, but it's Wonderfill brand, size 12 weight. And she said, decide which one you like. When she's using Pearl 8, Pearl Cotton in a size 8, she'll typically only use 1 thread. So I said, okay, well, I'll just try it and see what I think. So another thing that I find helpful was a needle threader, and I'll show you that. This one is one I had, double needle threader it says, and this one has large eye needles and small eye. And if you can't tell which end is which, this large eye has a large button up here, and the small eye has a small button down there. That's how you tell. So I was able to use that for some of this, for threading the needle too. Then other tools that are helpful that you may already have are instruction books. So this is a simple little embroidery stitch guide put out by DMC. Printed, it says, in 2017. I got this at my yard sale too. And it has good little sketches. There's the back stitch. There's the stem stitch. There's the lazy daisy. And pretty good. What I liked about it, besides the little pictures, it tells you which direction to sew from top to bottom or left to right, and then it tells you good words that I could understand clearly as I was working my way. So this was a simple little book. And I am sure that all of this stuff is online, probably at the DMC's website, has very similar information. Then I looked in my bookshelf, and I still have a substantial amount of books, like 350 titles or so. This is a great book when you really get into embroidery. Whoop, lay it down there on the camera, Barbara. Okay, Essential Stitch Guide, Judith Baker Montano's Essential Stitch Guide. This is when you really get into all of it. This book is large, and there's 200 pages just about, and all sorts of stitches, fancy stitches, stitches for ribbon, stitches for embroidery floss, for everything. Tons and tons and tons and tons of stitch. So this was a book I already had. And then this was a book that I got from Laura Wazalowski when she came to our guild, and she did a class we had. Oh, and I meant to try to pull that out. I never finished it. It's buried somewhere over there. I'll have to pull that out. And it's called Fanciful Stitches, Colorful Quilts. And it's a simple 11 easy applique projects to embroider by hand. And then there is just there's only a couple of pages of this. Those are the projects. Let me find the stitches. Here we go. Okay. So she talks about balance of the stitches and needles and thread and all that kind of stuff. And there's just a few pages of her stitches. There's not hundreds of stitches here. In hers, she only uses a few stitches, but there's stitches that we're going to use. The lazy daisy stitch. There's a fly stitch. There's some other, the chain stitch, buttonhole stitch, if you like that, the stem stitch, which I'm going to demonstrate for you, the running stitch, and things like that. So this is a neat little book, and it's got just the basic information that you will find very helpful for this whole project. Let me get that out of the way. And okay, so all right. So another thing that Alex talks about, and when we go to share my screen, I'm going to show you where she's got some great stitch-alongs that she's done here in the last few years that are free, that are still up on the site that you can find easily. One was very involved that she did on silk, and that has 19 different sections to it. But there's another one, a simpler one, Bountiful Fruit, that only has 4 little lessons in it. So, but she also talks about, particularly on the silk one, practice with a practice piece first before you jump in to your very valuable item that you want to put the embroidery on. So for you, I'm talking about, for us, the log cabin borders. And the first ones that I didn't do a practice. No. I just jumped right in there. And I did these, and they're not great. They're kind of wonky. I didn't draw them really pretty. I just drew the center circle, and then I winged it for the kind of the petals that go around the outside. And one of the things that Alex says in her videos is, if you don't like a stitch, just keep going. Just keep going. It's the general overall effect of all of it that you will see, not every individual stitch. And that is certainly true of even things like hand quilting. Every one of us who does hand quilting occasionally got a stitch that's a little wonky, or he's out of line, he's not right where he belongs. But you're not going to ever see that again. It's going to be the overall texture that you're after. So these worked out, and they're okay. One of the things that I've discovered with doing this embroidery as on these blocks is you've got seam allowance on the back. And so there's going to be places where you're going to find you really have to push the needle through, because you're going through the top layer and 2 layers of seam allowance as well. And I found that was kind of a factor that I had to give some thought to. So those are those little guys that I did. And I'm going to show you this one in a minute. And then these were the snowdrops ones. Remember those odd shapes that we didn't quite understand what they were going to be? These shapes with these little funky little long skinny leaves that I talked about last month, how I just ultimately decided to machine stitch those raw edge. And I think what I might do ultimately, no, I probably won't. But Alex is going to work on this. She's going to get a chance to play with these. I'm going to do a few more for purposes of our demo today, and the live coming up in the 2 or 3 months, the blog about the next embroidery stitches. And then Alex is going to get the quilt, and she's going to do the rest of it, because she loves to do the embroidery, and she can get it done a heck of a lot faster than I can. And then this quilt is going to belong to her. She's going to be its new owner. So I'm going to talk some more about this in a few minutes. But so what she tells you to do is do a practice piece. And I thought, 2 days ago, as I'm preparing for this live, I go, I better do a practice piece so I can see what it is that I want to show and how does it work. Well, this is one of the fabrics in the kit, which, by the way, since my quilt is all done, I have a fairly good stack of the kit fabrics left. And I'll have that put together as a little purchase for anybody that might want to get it for not a lot of money. It'll probably cost more for me to ship it to you than it would for you to pay for it. If you would like to have those, shoot me an email. You'll find my email on my blog, but it's very easy. It's bbquiltmaker@gmail.com. All lowercase, all one word, bbquiltmaker@gmail.com. But this is just a piece that was left over. Well, I'm here to tell you this is the perfect kind of fabric to practice with. Something with a geometric design that you can use as a guide for stitch length, for things like that. So what I want to show you here is, this is the Wonderfill thread that I've used with this gold one here. Is it? No, it's not. But it's close. It's very similar in size to this. This was a needle lamp and half threaded. So what you can see here is this is the back stitch, one strand. This is that same thread, the same stitch, but two strands. And that just gives a little more definition, a little more oomph to it. And on our log cabin blocks, I would like the two strands. And I did the same thing when I did this little stitch in here. I did two strands. I used green on this one, and then I switched to blue, or I started with the blue and ran out, and then I went to the green just to put something else in there. So I like the two strand look better on our particular borders. And then I had also tried the stem stitch. I've looked at the pictures, and I've put pictures up on my blog so that you could see detailed photos. Alex still has the quilt, and I asked her to send me lots of photos, and then I put them in my blog this month, the July blog, which I think I put up on June 29th or something. But all of our instruction for this month from Jen shows to do back stitch, is what it says for these long stems. But I said, I looked at some of the pictures and I went, that looks thicker than a back stitch. I wonder if maybe it's not a stem stitch. And so I tried the stem stitch, and I like that even better. That's two strands of thread, but it actually, I call it like a stitch and a half, the way you make a stem stitch. So it actually has some real nice definition to it. And I like how that looks quite a bit. So, but you just experiment, and it's easy to experiment on something like this. Thread your needle with one strand of thread, do a handful of stitches. I mean, I didn't do what's an inch and a half here, just to see how it looked and decide, well, let me see what it looks like with two strands of thread. And then I went to this one, and then I tried the stem stitch. So it's just something for you to consider. Another great reason to do these practice stitches here is when you can find what you don't want to have happen. So this is a chain stitch, and there's a chain stitch instruction in this little book, and there's a chain stitch in Laura Wazalowski's book. And I really like the way it looks in places where it would be really good. So I did the first two. Those stitches turned out terrific. And then I did the next one, and I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but this third stitch here, it's twisted. The yarn, the thread, got turned around on my needle. I just had it the wrong way, and when I put the needle in, now it's twisted, so you don't get that lovely chain, excuse me, that opening chain that you want to have. And then I put the next one down here because I was almost out of thread, and when I took it down to the back and pulled it through, the thread popped out, and so it's not done. It's not secured. If I was going to continue and do this all along the way, then I would use the same thread, and I would come from the back, and that first stitch that comes up would catch that little chain and put it back in line where it belongs. Okay, so that's a thought. In that first phone call with Alex, we were talking about this, and I said, you know, I don't know enough about this to really give me some advice on how I should approach this and answer. And I had this whole pile of questions that I wanted to ask her, because just like you, the questions are not answered in the pattern. So I have to take a look and see. Yeah, I'm trying to get myself a good knot here, and I don't want that at all. Not if I'm going to demonstrate this for you. Come on, thread. How'd you get in there? Oh, yeah, you're going to be trouble. Anyway, so I asked her, and she said, you know, it's a good thing that meaning me, that I'm as much of a newbie at this as quite a few of you probably are too. So... oh, and I just hate to waste thread, so I really should just cut this off. But man, I just really hate to do that. Let's see if I can get anywhere with this. Oh yeah, this is not going to go. All right, well, there's a good old knot in there, so I am going to have to cut that up. Where are you now? Okay, there you go. All right, so one of the tricks that I had remembered from embroidery a whole long time ago is what I call the knotless knot. And Alex talked about it too. She didn't call it that, but the no-show knot or something like that she had. What's involved with that is starting the thread. You use this knot when you're using a double strand of thread. And we want to start with a loop at the knot end. So the first thing that we talked about, Alex and I, she said, cut your thread. And then I went back and watched many of her videos that are up there that I'm going to show you where you can find them too. And I would recommend you start to listen to some of those as well. Is you cut your thread about 18 to 24 inches is all you need for one strand. And if you're going to use two strands, then about double that. So about a yard, 36 inches or so, about in that ballpark. The only trick with the two strands is that you've got to thread two strands of thread through the eye of that needle. And I couldn't do them together at the same time. I just had no luck with that. I'd get one in and the other one wouldn't go. And so then I just said, okay, well, we'll do you one at a time if that's the way it has to be, but that's what we'll do. And so I've got this needle threaded, two strands, and the loose ends, the non-loop end is here at the beginning where the eye of the needle is. The loop is down here at the bottom. Put that on the thread so you can see that. There it is. Okay. So what Alex, in showing hers on her video several times, she'd say, come from the back, and then she'd, no, that's not right. Come from the top. So we'll just come from the top here, and I just go in and take just a little teeny stitch right here. Remember, this works when you are using two strands of thread. Pull it through. And before you get all the way out, if you pulled it all the way through, you'd take the stitch right out. Is just put the needle through there, and now you have a little knot. And it's larger maybe than you'd want it to be, but if nothing else, it looks like a French knot. And if you needed a place to have a French knot, now that's a good place to make a little French knot. Let's see if I can do that. Okay. French knot involves holding the needle in your dominant hand and taut thread in your left, in my case, the left hand. We wrap it twice is probably enough because this is double strand. And I hadn't planned to show you a French knot, but I left go. That's bad. That's not going to work. And you want to pull it all the way down. Oh, yeah, that is definitely not what you're after. That's a French gigantic knot. And so I'm just going to put it in there any old way. All right. But because this is just a practice piece. And again, see, that's a great reason to do a practice piece. I don't want to make that mistake on my log cabin block. Oh, see, now that's terrific. You close it down. That's a good old French knot. That's just fine. So a running stitch is just trying to keep, just like in quilting, trying to keep the stitches even. Okay, I did two little French knots over here before, just for practice, before we said it. So that's a running stitch. And I don't know if we're going to use that in this particular quilt, but that's when I first looked at the picture and didn't go online and search out back stitches, I thought from looking at our sketch here is that that's what we were doing, basically a running stitch, but that's not. So let me change directions here, just for practice, because this is not a family heirloom. This is just practice. All right. And so I'll come down here, and so let me see if I can think about this for a minute. Yeah, all right, so I'm turning the corner here. So a back stitch just means that instead of going forward, which would be a running stitch, I come backwards into the same hole if you can. And again, this little gingham checkerboard works really well as a guide. I can just say, well, I want 2 stitches per square. You might want 3 stitches per square. Put this in here. Try to get very close to the same hole, if not in the same hole. Close enough. Come on, you. See, and people keep saying, oh, this is so soothing and this is so relaxing. I'm here to tell you it's not all that soothing and relaxing when you're learning, like anything else, and particularly if you're trying to do it on camera for a couple hundred or thousand of your closest friends to look at. Let me get this in here. All right, come on. That's a big stitch that I'm making here. And I would probably want to make them smaller. But you can easily do this practice on this little piece of scrap that doesn't mean anything, that didn't cost you much of anything. It didn't cost anything, it's leftover. And just as a way to see, and I would look and say, well, In some instances, that size is pretty good for where I might want it to be. But if I was doing something that was going to turn a curve more tightly, I'd want smaller stitches. So that's just a great thing to use with a little practice piece before you jump in, if you're new to this, as I think many of you will be. The another thing I was just going to mention, I see this here, so you yeah, is a thimble. This one is an open top thimble. If you're not a thimble person, they're also called tailor's thimbles. The thing that's nice about this is it doesn't matter if you have a long nail or that it doesn't have to fit perfectly fine, that it won't fall off. A thimble has to fit so it won't fall off when you put your hand like this. But this helps to protect and can give you something to push through. And as I mentioned, when I was pushing into seam allowances, I found that I really had to push, and a thimble would be helpful for that. So another thing that Alex mentions quite a bit is her recommendation for marking, because I know that's a question that's going to come up too. Should you mark this? So what I did for this little guy is, and I did this in all of these cases. Where's my lazy daisy picture? There it is. Okay. So I just looked on the pattern to see where does it go. And this one goes down here in this section. The glare is rough that you can't see it, but it's down there. You've got the pattern. And it goes down in here. So I made just a little dot for the center of each of the lazy daisies so I knew where they were going to be. And then using a marker, and this is my go-to perfect, wonderful Quilter Select self-erase marker. They disappear automatically. It says 1 to 14 days. In my humid climate, they're gone in a few hours. So it's just an easy way. And I just looked at the picture and said, well, okay, this guy goes like this. And so I'll go this way. And then this one goes like this. It's better to do this when it's not in the frame. In the hoop, because I'm getting these kind of wonky here. And then they have little lazy daisy stitches off to the side. So I said, I'll put one there, and I'll put one there, and oh, let's put one down there. Here, where does your flower have leaves? Here's one, let's do there and there. And then this one has, I drew this one a couple hours ago, and it's almost all gone already. So I recommend this tool highly, the Quilter Select Self-Erase Marker. It does a great job, and it does erase immediately, or you could use the other end, has an eraser, a liquidy eraser, and it washes right out too. So anyway, so that's that. But okay, so I am going to show you that stem stitch on here. Since I learned how to do it, I'll show you how to do it. And so it's just, that's why I call it like a 1.5 stitch. This is 2 strands of thread, and I'm coming up. The thread is coming out about halfway back of the length of the previous stitch. So I'm going to put my stitch in here. Let's see if I can bring it out of the way so you can see it. Come on, and you drop the needle. All right. And this is all I'm going to demonstrate for you, so don't get nervous if I'm not showing this to you quite as clearly as you'd like. All right, so I'm going to have the next stitch here, okay, and it kind of, the hoop's in my way, come up there, and you just come up to about where the end of the previous stitch was. There we go, okay, and close that. Make sure that they're 2 strands on. And it's an overlapping stitch where a back stitch goes stitch, 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 stitch. The stem stitch goes forward, back a half, forward, forward, back a half on a slant. And so it gives some added dimension. And for a stem, I think that looks really great. And I probably ought to do a lazy daisy right in here somewhere too. So hadn't planned on doing that either, but sometimes you just want to do something that seems to be the place to do it. So you come in right here, come up to wherever you want that leaf point to come out, okay? And then I'm going to wrap it from right to left for me and hold it here. There you go. Decide how lazy that daisy is supposed to be. How open do you want it to be? And then we just kind of take that little, essentially it's a couching stitch. We're going right back down there to couch it. And now I come back to where I want to make the next stitch, which is going to be, and I really hadn't planned to do all this on camera for you, but okay. I come here to, is that where I want to be? No, I don't think that's where I want to be. I want to come up closer to the beginning. Okay, just enough. But that little couching stitch closes it, and there's my daisy. And if you pull too tight and it closes it completely, before you go any further, just use the point of your needle, either from the front or the back, and open it up a little bit and make it a little bit softer, a little bit more open. Okay, so there is the demo portion of our class has come to an end. And I've got more to do on here. Like I said, I've got to finish up these daisies, and then I'm going to move on to the other border and do that lovely, I just think this Queen Anne's lace is just such a pretty little piece, so I'm going to play with that. Okay, let us go to share my screen. All right, there we go. Okay, we got a few people there. I am going to look for where it depends, and yep, I will be looking at questions again in a little bit. Okay, so on my blog, what day did it post? June the 30th, I posted it. It's typically Sunday is the day that I post my blog posts, but occasionally I change it up when there's a reason to be early. Anyway, so I showed pictures of the blocks so that there's that Queen Anne's lace. I just think that's so pretty. Also, remember that there is a lot of stitching on these blocks with embroidery thread that Jen did as quilting stitches. And so we're not going to do all of that. The only motifs that we're working on with, while it's just a top, are the motifs that Jen has shown in the pattern. You can certainly add more yourself if you would like to, but just be aware there. See, there's that, I think that's the border I'm doing next. There's the Queen Anne's lace and those adorable little cherries. And so we've got that. And just some more pictures that you can see. There's the one I was just demonstrating, those little lazy daisies. And hers look much better than mine, but she's been at this for 30 years. And I haven't. So in the grand scheme of things, I think they're going to be fine. There's those little things, and mine don't look anything like hers. So, okay. So then I had some links for you to find the different things. This Bountiful Fruit is a great one that Alex did. It's a simple one. It only has 4 lessons. You can click right there. It'll take you right to it. Then the big one that she did with silk that has 19 lessons is this one, Make It Your Own Embroidery. So I'm going to take you to that for a second. I checked to make sure yesterday it worked. Yes. Okay. So here they are, and she's got lesson 1 was getting started. Remember, this was a one that she was doing on a beautiful piece of silk. So there was a lot of preparation in that lesson 1 talking about it. And then she's got lesson 2 stitches and lesson 3 plus more stitches. And it also includes, this lesson 3 includes an interview that she did with me. This came out in 2021. December of 2021, and that was the year in Houston that I had my personal exhibit. So if you are interested in that, the majority of this lesson, I'll just take it to you there for a second, and we click on it, and from like 8 to 30 minutes, okay? And that's me from 2021 talking to Alex about the exhibit. So anyway, and there's a lot of, so it's much after 30 minutes is when she gets to the embroidery stitches. So let me just show you what she's showing here, just so you get a sense of it. See that? So, okay. So that's a good thing for you to take a look at if you want more directions. Alex is great about explaining what she's doing, and she really shows you how to do these things, and it's really terrific. The Magic Garden Gnome has simple lessons as well. And I told you the things that she told me about, the lessons that she went. And then I went to Google. You can go to YouTube first or Google. And I found 2 really good little examples. And we're running long, so I'm not going to click on those. 5 basic stitches. Those are the stem stitch, the lazy daisy, the running stitch, that kind of thing. And then these 14 hand embroidery stitches, they were really good, but there's no words. It's just music. And that just kind of puts me to sleep for some reason. So, but the pictures were great, and the video. So if that's helpful for you, then you could find that as helpful. So let me go back to the webcam, and then I want to check and see if you have any questions, because I realize this has run longer than I would like to be. I thought we were going to finish in 20 minutes today, because I thought, I have much to say, but apparently I did. So let me see if I see any questions. Okay. Hello, and thank you for your help. Oh yeah, love my hair's getting long. I'm kind of yeah. I'm liking it, and soon it'll be long enough I can pull it back, and that'll be great in the heat of the summer. Um, Good. Carol Berry is a wonderful star member, and she's the one who made the Color My World in wool and has won all kinds of awards with that quilt. She is very receptive and is willing. She said, I'm happy to help answer people's questions on embroidery. So please use the forum as your place to ask questions. That is the one place that I can contact and comment and answer, and other people that are very helpful, like Helen W. and certainly Kara. So that's great. What's the best way to get the design on the quilt? Jan asks. If you had a light box or a window that you could have the sun behind it, you could just, using that magic the eraser, the self-erase marker, or any kind of a light tool. I like to use a very light pencil sometimes, if that's what I can see on that, especially if you're going to want to mark a lot of it. For me, as I said, that pen, the eraser pen, is gone in a matter of hours, so I can only mark what I want to do now. Patty says the trick is to have the two strand ends as together as possible, moisten it so they stick together, then cut off the tip again, just enough to take off a fuzzy end. Now you can thread both ends through the eye at the same time. Make sure the eye is not too small for both to fit. Yes, absolutely. So that's good. There's Florida, and good. And Jan, I just answered a question. Great. Carol, that's super. Keep moving the hoop so you move. Yeah. I would have moved the hoop. I just, in the interest of time, I just wanted to move it along. Okay. You can do satin stitch for the stems. There you go. All righty. Working on the silk. Pearl cotton 8 or 12 weight. The Wonder Fill that is in our kit is 12 weight. Pearl that you can easily buy at most stores, like quilt shops, our local quilt shop that has a lot of pearl cottons, usually size 8. Sometimes they have a few colors in 12. The 8 is a thicker thread, so you might find that one strand is sufficient with 8, as opposed to where you might want 2 strands with 2. So that's my buddy Sally, who lives here in Huntsville. She's getting her first taste of summer weather. She moved here from Southern California. So yeah, I know it's a little humid here, Sally. So, okay, I think that's good for questions. Looking forward to doing embroidery. Deborah says good. A lot of embroidery, yeah. Oh, she's San Diego, Colorado, 70 to 85 degrees. Yay. Okay, so let me go back to there. Okay, so that's going to wrap us up for today. I'm sorry I've run along a little bit. The next live is scheduled for Friday, August the 2nd, where we will be back to more appliques for more log cabin borders. So those are coming. And then I just wish you, if you're U.S. and going to be celebrating 4th of July, that you have a fun and safe 4th of July weekend with you and your loved ones. That'll be great. And if you're in places in the world like down under and South and Central America or South America, and where it's winter, where it's cold in in this month, I just can't wrap my head around what that would be like. That would be quite an experience for me. So I wish you all the good things too. So until next time, that's a wrap.